I sit here in Cedarwood Valley, nestled in the corner of a cozy little coffee shop, my gaze drifting away from the steaming cup in front of me to the majestic mountains that frame this beautiful valley. The sunlight spills through the window, bathing everything in a warm golden hue that feels almost comforting. But inside, my heart is heavy with emotional turmoil, and those majestic peaks that touch the sky seem to mock me with their stillness and serenity. A soft, comforting melody plays in the background, a gentle reminder that the world moves on, oblivious to the storm brewing within me. "You okay, miss?" the barista asks, breaking through my thoughts. She has a kind face, a sprinkle of freckles dusting her nose. I can tell she genuinely cares, but the question feels like a pinprick in the bubble of contemplation I've wrapped around myself. "Yeah, I'm fine," I reply, my voice lacking conviction. I try to muster a smile, but it falls flat and she picks up on it. "You sure? You seem pretty deep in thought. You've been here for a while," she points out, gesturing toward the near-empty cup of coffee that has grown cold beside me. I nod again, but I know I'm not fine. It is days like today that rip open old wounds, exposing feelings I thought I had tucked away. The reason for my visit is painfully clear in my mind: my grandfather's passing and the chaotic aftermath of his will. He was so much more than just a patriarch. He was the one person in my family who understood me, who saw my worth when no one else did. At 28, I find myself in a place I never anticipated, caught in a web of family politics and emotional betrayal. I was never part of the main storyline, the background character, while my sister basked in the glow of my mother's favoritism. I thought the bond I shared with my grandfather was unbreakable, a foundation that no one could shake. But when the news came that he left behind a staggering $750,000 inheritance, I had no idea of the fury that would ignite among those I thought were closest to me. "You can't just leave me out of this." I can practically hear myself shouting, the words echoing in my mind as my mother and uncle stood in the living room that day, the day everything changed. "Sophie," my mother had said with a dismissive wave of her hand, her voice dripping with condescension, "we're doing what's best for the family. You just don't understand." I could see the pity in her eyes, as if I were a child throwing a tantrum, unaware of the adult world. But my heart pounded in my chest and I felt the blood rush in my ears. "Best for the family, or best for you and your precious son?" The accusations sparked in my chest like a live wire, ready to explode. "Amelia, stop. You're being unreasonable," my uncle interjected, his usual calm demeanor slipping. He was the one who always sided with my mother, reinforcing her opinions as if they were gospel. I bristled at his tone, my resentment curling into a ball of fire in my stomach. "You meant to groom her," I whispered as realization struck like clarity cutting through fog. It all began to make sense. The constant undermining of my worth, the gleaming expectations placed upon my sister, the perfect child. I had long been the black sheep, hidden in the shadows of my family's twisted perception of success. The air around me felt electric, alive with anger and frustration. I had finally thought to confront my mother about the years of neglect, about the times I had been cast aside like an afterthought. I wanted to shout that I was more than just a forgotten daughter. My eyes burned, and my hands trembled with unspent fury. "You can have my portion. Just let me out. Just leave me out of it." I had shot at them, the words dripping from my lips like venom. I forced myself to sound calm, but my heart was racing, pleading for acknowledgement, no validation. I wanted them to understand not only what had been lost but what had been stolen. "He left this estate," my mother said, her lips curling into a smug smile, "to those who deserve it. You need to understand that, Amelia. When we're gone, you will have your time to shine." Dismissive words cut deeper than any knife could, as they hung heavily in the air around us. My worth was not contingent upon their approval. I wanted to scream. It felt like I had been passed over, marked as unworthy of his legacy. The realization crashed into me, each wave a reminder of every slight, every moment spent in the shadows while my sister reveled in the spotlight. Why did he do this to me? The question had slipped out of my mouth, each word weighing down heavy like stones in my chest. I watched as the warmth in my mother's eyes froze over. "I'll never understand, will you? Always the victim, right? Maybe that's why he never considered you." My mother's words stung deeply, and I couldn't hide the tears welling up. "I made choices too," I shouted back, a wave of defiance surging through me. I felt firmer, steadier, as my heart thudded loudly against my ribcage. "Just because I don't fit the mold does not mean that I am worthless." "Amelia, you need to be realistic," my uncle chimed in yet again, and I caught the way my mother nodded approvingly, the smugness returning to her face. "You're not entitled to anything just because you're family. Your grandfather had his reasons." I felt the ground crack beneath my feet. So what, being born into this family is my sin? I yelled, my voice a sharp dagger slicing through their false sense of superiority. My mother flinched, rage flaring in her eyes. You will have to accept this, Amelia. Move on with your life. As if that was ever an option, I murmured as I stormed out, each step feeling heavier than the last. I struggled to catch my breath, pulling air deep into my lungs, but it felt like I was suffocating. Instead of the relief I sought, a fierce desire for justice awoke inside me, thrumming like a mantra. Enough, I whispered to myself. Enough. I had to reclaim that which was rightfully mine, not just the money, but my identity and place in this family. The relentless thoughts of vengeance coursed through my veins like fire, igniting a rage I had never truly embraced. Determination bubbled inside me as I sat alone in the grocery store, drowning in the memories of countless family gatherings where I felt invisible, shadows dancing in the periphery of my mother's attention. How could they? My thoughts spiraled into a furious whirlpool as I took a slow sipping of my cold coffee, which I had completely forgotten about. The bitterness matched my mood, and as I grimaced at the taste, I decided that it was time I took matters into my own hands. What can one do? I mumbled under my breath, the barista glancing over, clearly intrigued and concerned. The world began to fade away, and I conjured images of my grandfather. His laughter, his warmth, the little moments we shared while basking in the glow of what family should have been. Who would fill the gaps that my mother had carved out, intentionally or not? Time to rewrite the narrative. I recoiled at the notion that I had allowed them to shape my life for so long. I was not just a forgotten daughter, a black sheep. I was Amelia Bennett, and I would no longer sit idly by, a silent observer in my life. As I glanced out the window at the mountains bathing in the golden light, a sense of clarity washed over me. I will rise. The words felt powerful as they settled into the creases of my heart. I would not be erased. The fight for my identity would begin today. I resolved that I would use this betrayal as fuel, as the fire that would ignite my path toward revenge. No longer a puppet, I would pull the strings. I took one last deep breath, inhaling the scent of roasted coffee and the cool mountain air that filtered through the door. The atmosphere of the coffee shop faded into the background, and in that moment, I felt empowered. I would reclaim not just what was taken from me, but the very essence of who I was. I knew I had to dig deeper, uncover the skeletons hidden in our family closet. I woke each day with a sense of purpose, fueled by anger and a resolve to set things right. The memories of my childhood at the family property haunted me like ghosts, urging me forward into the darkness I once thought was home. Did I really want to unearth this family secret, knowing it could tear the very fabric of what little connection I had left with my mother? Part of me wanted to protect the family I loved. Another part forced me to confront the urgent desire to expose their betrayal. It felt like I was caught in a trap of my own making. With each late-night drive to the property, my heart raced in tandem with the engine's hum. The skies above Cedarwood Valley were an unforgiving shade of deep blue that night, cloaked in darkness, much like the truths I was about to unveil. As I parked my car beneath the familiar old trees, the moonlight peeked through the branches, illuminating the front porch steps that creaked beneath my weight. The house loomed before me like an old friend turned foe, its cracked windows staring down as if to warn me. I took a moment, inhaling the musty air, my heart thrumming in my chest. Tonight was different. It was a chance to reclaim my narrative, to stand against those who had wronged me and my sister. With the key to the front door shaking in my hand, I could feel a pang of nostalgia. I recalled the times we played hide and seek among the furniture, my mother's laughter echoing through the halls. But all of that felt like a mask now. Beneath it lay the ugly truth. How could she betray us like this? I slipped inside the darkened entryway, the air thick with dust and secrets. I flicked on the small flashlight I had brought with me, the beam cutting through shadows and revealing the disarray of years gone by. The same worn carpets lay stained with memories, but tonight it was the scent of stale coffee and decay that hung in the air, reminding me of what my mother had become. A tingle of excitement shot through me as I made my way to the storage room at the back of the house. I wasn't just looking for records and ledgers, I was looking for answers. The click of the doorknob was muted, and I stepped inside, the beam of light revealing a treasure trove of tightly stacked boxes and forgotten artifacts. My pulse quickened further, mixing dread with exhilaration. I could practically hear whispers urging me on. As I started to rummage through the boxes, my fingers trembled, moving apart dusty papers as if I were unearthing buried treasure. Old receipts crinkled beneath the weight of years, brittle and yellowed by age. "'Sis it?" I murmured to myself, my voice a mere shadow in the enclosed space. I will illuminate the darkness. I stifled a gasp as I stumbled upon a box filled with intricate transaction ledgers, the crisp pages inviting me to delve deeper into my family's labyrinth of deception. My thoughts raced, memories of my mother's warmth battling with the bitter taste of betrayal that rose in my throat. I focused on the documents, every number and transaction weaving a more intricate tapestry of betrayal. Expensive renovations, I muttered as my eyes skimmed the figures, my brow furrowing. What renovations? How could my uncle make such lavish changes without interest from my sister or me? My heart began to race even faster, pounding against my rib cage. It felt like a warning. I hardly realized how much time slipped away from me as I busily scanned records showing payments for marble countertops and gleaming chandeliers. Each new discovery added fuel to the fire in my chest. Thumbing through each document felt like peeling back layers of deceit, revealing sordid secrets hidden deep within our family tree. It wasn't just about the inheritance anymore. It felt like a heist, an elaborate scheme they had orchestrated with my sister and me as the unsuspecting, frictionless victims. My mind couldn't help but flash back to earlier conversations with my mother, her dismissals of my concerns, her reassurances that everything was figured out. I could hear her voice echoing in my mind, soft yet commanding. "You don't have to worry about those things, sweetheart, just trust me." I winced painfully, resentment bubbling in my stomach like acid. As I continued to dig deeper, I stumbled upon another box, this one wrapped in dark fabric, heavy with a perplexing promise. I unsnatched its lid, and a strong smell of mustiness erupted from within. Nestled inside, I found cassette tapes, each labeled with dates and times that sent shivers down my spine. My breath caught as I realized these were recordings of my mother's conversations, her late-night discussions with my uncle. "What do you mean they will never know?" I whispered in disbelief, lifting the tapes out as if they were toxic. My skin prickled with tension. The clatter of the tape against the wood floor echoed in the cramped space, each hollow sound amplifying my panic. I turned one over in my hand, keeping the others clutched tightly. Tremors coursed through me as I recognized my mother's voice, entangled with my uncle's scruffy tone. "We can sell it, and there will be no love lost, believe me," he had said, and my stomach twisted at the very thought. I never thought my mother could manipulate so coldly. How could she lie under our shared roof while painting smiles to mask her true intentions? "This is much bigger than inheritance," I groaned, forcing the words past the lump wedged in my throat. My anger was a wildfire threatening to consume me, to swirl and spread beyond my control. How many nights did I lie in bed believing in a family bond that had become a fragile, lying facade? My mother, who had always guided me, was now holding the knife, ready to cut us out of her life. I could feel tears of rage and frustration pooling in my eyes, blurring my vision of the tainted past. "How could you do this to us?" I spoke out loud, my voice trembling as it echoed off the walls, carrying only to the shadows. "How could you betray me?" I clenched my fists, a wave of despair crashing over me as I imagined how my sister would feel if she ever found out the depth of our family's greed. The puzzle pieces were fitting together too perfectly, each one a morbid testament to betrayal. As I picked up the tapes, the resolve inside of me hardened. It was no longer just about me, it was about my sister too. "We deserve to know the truth. You will not silence us," I declared, channeling the energy flowing through my veins into a newfound plan. It was time to take control, to reach out and gather allies in this fight for what was rightfully ours. I tightened the grip on my flashlight and turned to leave the storage room. But before I stepped away, I took a last glance at the mess of papers, miniature monsters layered in deceit. I took one last deep breath, inhaling the scent of dust mingling with the sharpness of betrayal. "I will make this known. I will not let you bury us," I whispered defiantly to whoever might hear. At that moment, the weight of the family's secrets pressed down on me, but it filled me with a fierce determination only fueled by my anguish. As I stepped out into the fresh night air, the thrill of discovery was rapidly replaced by the cold reality that lay ahead. The family I had always embraced was laced with betrayal, and I needed to bring this all to light. A plan was forming in the back of my mind, like the pieces on a chessboard waiting for their turn to strike. I would expose them. I would control this narrative. I made my way to the car, adrenaline coursing through my veins like a current looking for a destination. I clicked the cassette tapes into my bag securely, reminding myself of their weight and the evidence they held. I would study them, dissect them, and find the information I need. "You won't get away with this," I assured myself with a determined glint in my eye. As I drove away from the house, the moonlight bathed Cedarwood Valley in silver shadows, but my heart was a storm of resolve. I knew I was only beginning. My quest for truth transforming from a whisper into a roar. I felt an electric pulse of conviction coursing through my veins as I sat across from the lawyer in his small, cluttered office, the air heavy with the scent of old paper and a hint of incense that lingered in the corners. The walls were lined with diplomas and certificates, each framed piece of parchment, a testament to his years of dedication. It was comforting and unsettling all at once. My hands trembled slightly as I laid the papers on the polished mahogany desk between us, feeling the weight of betrayal radiating from their yellowed pages. "I can't believe it has come to this," I began, my voice taut with emotion. "I thought family was supposed to be everything, but mine, they have turned against me in ways I can hardly fathom." I could hear the quiver in my tone, a stark contradiction to the steely resolve I had tried to cultivate. Tears threatened to spill from the corners of my eyes, but I swallowed them back. It felt so good to talk about the pain I had carried for so long, to finally strip away the layers until I could finally expose the truth. The lawyer glanced at the documents I presented, seeming genuinely interested, nodding slowly. "Tell me your story," he said softly, but with urgency in his voice. "Start from the beginning." I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the moment as I began to unravel my life like an intricate tapestry. I was always the lesser child. My mother, she favored my sister in ways that still make my stomach turn. It was almost as if the sun shone only on her while I lived in the shadows. It was so clear. Mom would praise my sister for the smallest accomplishments while belittling my efforts, forcing me into a corner. I wasn't just ignored, I was actively pushed down. As I spoke, a memory flashed through my mind, vivid and raw. I remembered the holiday family dinners, the way my mother would beam as she showed off my sister's trophy from the school science fair, her voice dripping with pride as if it were gold. Meanwhile, I would sit there with my own project, once lovingly crafted, going unnoticed. "How could she not see the pain in my eyes?" I whispered. The lawyer's deep-set eyes softened and he leaned in. "And the recordings, they hold power. You're showing a pattern of neglect and manipulation. That's the key, Amelia. You're not just fighting for justice. You're fighting for your dignity." Tears breached the dam this time and I felt them roll down my cheeks, salt stinging my skin. "This is all I have left," I managed, my voice shaking. "If I lose this fight, I lose myself again. I cannot go back to being invisible. I refuse to let them silence me again." "There is enough here to challenge the will," he assured me, his voice steady and grounding. At that moment, a flicker of hope ignited in my chest, a small flame that washed over the dim corners of despair that had haunted me for so long. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You have every right to be both seen and heard." I took his words to heart, clutching the papers tightly in my hand. Although my heart swelled with excitement, doubt crept in as the court date approached. What if they retaliated? What if their connections ran deeper than I had assumed? Nights turned into endless cycles of anxiety, winding ropes of doubt tightening around my resolve. As the day loomed closer, I often found myself pacing my small apartment, thoughts spiraling like whirlwinds inside my head. With every step I took on the hardwood floor, I could feel the weight bearing down. I envisioned the courtroom, the high ceilings, the echoing sounds, the eyes of strangers upon me. Would they even believe me? Would the judge see me as credible? Or would they see me as the ungrateful child casting aspersions on a loving mother? The morning of the trial arrived, bleak and gray, as if the sky mirrored my trepidation. I dressed meticulously, choosing a dark blue dress that hugged my figure, a reminder of resilience. It was symbolic of the fight within me, a stark contrast to the turbulent storm brewing in my chest. The courtroom was colder than I had anticipated, each wooden bench drenched in a chilling silence punctuated only by the rustling of papers and the shuffling of feet. As I entered the courtroom, my heart hammered against my ribs. The air felt thick, our family's unbroken bond stretching and pulling like elastic, ready to snap at any moment. My sister sat there with an expression of uncertainty etched in her features, unaware of the full depth of betrayal I had unearthed. I cast a quick glance at my mother, who sat front and center, her eyes gleaming with defiance, a lioness ready to pounce. Taking the stand was daunting. I felt exposed, vulnerable beneath the bright lights that seemed to seep into every crack of my being. When I began recounting my story, a warm rush of adrenaline coursed through me, propelling my words like a volley in battle. I was overlooked for years, my achievements dismissed. My mother poured all her affection into my sister while I sank deeper into the background, a mere shadow. As I spoke, a lump formed in my throat when I played the first recording. The soft click of the play button echoed the affirmative sound of my determination. Just as I had imagined, their reactions were immediate, an orchestra of panic rolling through the courtroom. I could see my uncle's face blanching, my mother's brow creasing in indignation, while my sister's mouth fell open in confusion. The sound of their scheming echoed like dark thunder in my ears. "We'll make sure she never gets a dime, she doesn't deserve it," boomed my mother's voice from the recording, cold and cutthroat against the backdrop of my heart. Tension escalated as I continued playing each recording, their betrayal unfurling in stark contrast to the image of the family I once believed in. Look at them, I thought, my pulse quickening. This was the moment of reckoning. Would the court see the truth? The sneers, the laughter, sounds of my demise that had once only reverberated in my mind now bounced off the walls, leaving no room for ignorance. Yet just then my mother stood up, her lips curled into a ferocious snarl, fury radiating from her like a toxic wave that threatened to drown me. "This is a complete disgrace. You are tearing this family apart with your lies. How could you? You're so ungrateful," she shouted, her voice strangled and hoarse, cutting through my testimony like a knife. Accusatory words hung in the air, sharp and piercing, every syllable a dagger aimed right at my heart. My breath hitched. I faltered for just a moment, her words tugging at old wounds that I had barely begun to address. All at once, the bravado within me wavered as old memories rose to the surface. Did I really want to tear my family apart, the very family I had yearned for my entire life? But then, another memory gripped me, of empty promises and an empty chair at every family gathering. Had they cared for me at all? No, I whispered to myself internally, regaining my focus, the resolve slowly creeping back as I reminded myself why I was here. I hadn't just come to fight, I had come to reclaim my life. My eyes searched the jury, seeking empathy, understanding, validation. "How dare you call me ungrateful when all I ever wanted was to feel loved? When you overtook everything I worked for?" In that moment of soul-bearing honesty, the flicker of light returned. I could feel my heart pounding behind every word I spoke as I poured my spirit into the truth. This isn't just about money, it is about the years lost. It is about the pain that no one wants to admit. And as my mother glared at me with fury mixed with fear, I leaned in, steady, steadfast. "I will not allow your fear to turn me back into the invisible girl you believed I was." As the room quieted, I felt the solidness of my determination. No longer a shadow in a family portrait, I had stepped out into the light, and whatever the verdict, whatever the battle ahead, I was prepared to face it head-on. "I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that." As I exited the courthouse, triumph coursing through my veins like a symphony of liberation, I paused just outside the heavy doors. The sunlight bathed everything in a golden glow, illuminating the serene blue sky above me. I had done it. I had faced my demons and emerged victorious from the darkness that had constrained me for so long. No longer was I the black sheep of the family, the misfit who never quite belonged. I was a warrior, a force to be reckoned with, having claimed my rightful place in a narrative that had so often been dictated by those around me. The exhilaration was palpable, thrumming through my body as I took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp autumn air that smelled of change and new beginnings. As I drove home, the familiar streets of Cedarwood Valley seemed transformed. Each tree lining the road swayed gently, almost as if acknowledging my victory, their leaves a riot of red and gold fluttering like confetti. The houses, once perceived as cages that held my frustration, now looked like monuments celebrating resilience. I felt a strange sense of nostalgia mix with an invigorating exhilaration. The battle I had fought was no longer just about money. It was a confrontation with myself, a fight to reclaim everything I had lost along the way, my voice, my self-worth, and ultimately, my peace. When I stepped inside my home, the very structure felt different beneath my fingertips. The wooden banister, once polished with polish and pride, now felt warm and alive, as if embracing every ounce of my hard-earned resolve. I had dreaded this space, filled with memories of bitterness and sly remarks, but now it felt rejuvenated, cradling my victories in its familiar embrace. I closed my eyes for a moment, allowing the whirlwind of emotions to settle. "Amelia," her voice trembled from the hallway, a soft echo that pulled me from my thoughts like a thread unraveling. My sister stood there, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, a reflection of understanding that pierced deep within me. For so long our bond had been frayed, tethered only by the invisible thread of our shared past and familial duty. "Is it really over?" she whispered, stepping forward, her gaze piercing yet warm, filled with a mixture of relief and anticipation. I nodded slowly, my throat tight with the weight of her question. "Yes," I affirmed, stepping closer and reaching to cup her cheek gently. It feels like a new beginning. She let out a choked breath, her tears glistening like morning dew on a blade of grass. I never thought you would actually go through with it, she admitted, her voice faltering. You fought so hard and I just watched. It was a lonely battle, I confessed, glancing down as waves of emotions washed over me. But knowing you believed in me from the beginning made it worth it. I paused, taking a deep breath as emotions swirled around us like a dance. But you also had your own fight, didn't you? Her brows knitted together. Amelia, she hesitated, her eyes looking deep into mine as if searching for a way to express her own struggles. I have carried this weight too, you know. Being placed on that pedestal created so much pressure. I felt as if I had to be perfect all the time. I felt a rush of empathy surge through me. I never wanted that for you, I replied, my voice shaking slightly. You're not just my sister, you're your own person with your own dreams and fears. The last thing I want is for you to feel burdened by my past or your role in the family. She stepped back, wrapping her arms around herself as her voice softened. But how could I not? I watched you be dragged through the mud and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't be there for you. It crushed me to know you were hurting, and yet I was upheld as the one who had all the answers. Don't you see? I insisted gently. This is not just about the inheritance anymore. It's about our relationship. We have to break this cycle. We can't let it continue to tear us apart. Her gaze met mine, and a moment of understanding painted the air between us. What do we do now? She asked, her voice steadying with resolve, as if she were ready to proactively reclaim her own life. Let us talk about things we've never talked about, I suggested, ushering her into the cozy comfort of the living room, a space where so much had once felt suffocating. We can start fresh. Can share our frustrations and fears. And yes, we can even talk about our family's actions, the betrayal, the greed, but we can do so with honesty, and we will be kinder to ourselves this time. As we settled into the plush couch, the pervasive silence morphed into an atmosphere of catharsis, broken only by the crackle of burning logs in the fireplace. I could see the flicker of flames reflected in my sister's eyes, illuminating the shadows of our past. Exhaling deeply, I began to unveil my heart. I never wanted to be the black sheep. I just yearned for my voice to be heard. And I've always wished to be seen as more than just the good daughter, she replied, fidgeting with the hem of her sweater as her voice faltered. But I felt trapped, like everyone expected me to be perfect. You were brave to fight back. I thought I should just stay quiet instead. That was our first mistake, wasn't it? I interjected, leaning forward to catch her bewildered gaze. What we endured did not just affect us, it created a rift in our relationship too, but I can't live under those shadows anymore. Tired of living under those shadows too, she whispered, her eyes glistening. But I don't know if I can be what you need me to be. I shook my head, an earnest smile spreading across my lips. You don't have to be. I don't need you to change just to be you. This new beginning is not about expectations. It's about being truthful, sharing our burdens. We can be allies rather than rivals. As we verbalized our feelings, weight after weight began to lift. The conversation turned deeper as we pondered the implications of our mother and uncle's betrayal. Their actions were selfish, I admitted, feeling both anger and sorrow intersect in my heart. They lost sight of what truly mattered. It was about more than the money, it was our family, our legacy. They chose greed over love, and it left us in a mess. I can understand their anger, my sister said quietly. They are feeling the consequences of their actions too, but I can't forgive them yet. I can't, she confessed, the vulnerability in her tone tugs at my heartstrings. No one can demand forgiveness, I replied softly, reaching over to hold her hand. It must be given freely, but we can hold ourselves accountable. This is part of the healing process. As we sat together, we decided that our healing would begin not just with the two of us but also through honest discussions with our mother and uncle, acknowledging their actions and how they hurt us. Maybe through this, we can create a new kind of family, I suggested, envisioning the future, holding onto each shared moment of revelation. I like that idea, she admitted, a gust of hope filling the air around us. But it will take time. There's so much hurt, Amelia, so much to unpack. Agreed. But like I said before, healing is a shared process. We can navigate this together, I reassured her, squeezing her hand gently. The space between us felt more open, the shadows beneath the surface of our relationship beginning to lift. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, a gentle rustle in the breeze echoed our process of transformation. So, what now? I asked, my fingers still entwined with hers. How do we step forward into this new dawn? Sitting together in the fading light, she took a moment to savor the question. We make new memories, one step at a time. We create space for each other and we learn from our past, she said, her lips stretching into a smile that warmed my heart. We can have family dinners again, I suggested, laughter bubbling up at the thought. And not just over holiday gatherings, real gatherings, where we genuinely care about what everyone is doing. Yes. She beamed, her eyes sparkling. And we invite our parents too, but only when you and I feel like we're ready. I'll tackle it together, symbolizing our new approach, I mused, the overpowering weight of bitterness growing lighter in my heart. Every step forward felt like reclaiming a piece of ourselves. As the light dimmed, we continued to share our dreams, fears, and even laughter. I knew now that my journey of revenge was not just about settling scores and seeking justice. It had transformed into something profound. I was no longer just reclaiming what was mine, but building the foundation of resilience with my sister. Together, we would cultivate a space filled with understanding, healing, and ultimately, love. The burden of financial injustice began to crumble with every heartfelt confession, and I finally grasped that the true inheritance was never about the money, but the strength to lift each other rather than tear each other apart. In that moment, beneath the shelter of my childhood home, amid the echoes of years gone by, I understood what it truly meant to grow and to forgive, while carving out a future where our voices, united and unwavering, would reverberate together in harmony.